Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody and call to order the September 10th, 2020 voting meeting of the Keystone Central School District Board of Directors. We will begin with the pledge to the flag and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, an executive session was held tonight, September 10th, 2020, from 5:30 p.m. until 6:32 p.m. to discuss personnel and legal matters. It's a little bit further delayed in our start right now because we realized that we needed to locate a flag so that we could have the Pledge of Allegiance. We're in a slightly different space than normal right now. Can we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. Allen?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Coe?
I can't hear you.
Mr. Coe?
Present.
Ms. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Probert?
Here.
Mrs. Smith? Present. Mr. Strauss?
Here.
9 members present.
Okay, thank you. First on our agenda tonight, we have a presentation. It is on the elementary report card, and the presentation is being done by our Director of Curricular Innovation, Megan Paul.
Thank you. So I was going to present the slideshow for us. And for those of you who are at the curricular and co-curricular meeting, this is going to sound very, very familiar and look very familiar, but we wanted to take the opportunity after that curricular and co-curricular meeting to share this information with the entire board and the entire community so that everybody is aware of the changes that are happening with the elementary report cards. So earlier in the summer, we took on the task of revising our elementary report cards. So we put together a committee, go ahead to the next slide, of a group of teachers. We had every single elementary administrator, which was fantastic, and we had this group of teachers who are up on your screen. So you'll be able to see from this list, we had a really great representation of different grade levels, different buildings for our elementary teachers. We actually had representation from every building and every grade level on this committee, which was really great. We also had instructional coaches, interventionists, and like I said before, we had every elementary administrator. So our goals for revising the elementary report card is that we needed to add a 4th grading period to the report card. So that was kind of the minimum threshold. Because we changed elementary to being 4 marking periods to align with the secondary schedule, our previous report card was based on a trimester. And so we needed to at least add a 4th grading period. But while we were making that change, we took the opportunity to make some other changes that made the elementary report card just a little bit more friendly. And so our goal was to make the language more student and parent friendly and take away any of the ambiguity from the grade reporting at the elementary level. And so the process that we followed, so if you want to flip to the next one, the first step that we took is we just gathered information. We did a survey with our teachers to figure out what was working, what was not working about the current report card and what the teachers would like to see done in order to improve our practices. The next thing we did is we researched some best practices in grade reporting. So we looked at research, we looked at some data about grade reporting, trying to think about what are the best practices, what does the research say? We also researched how other school districts in our area were doing grade reporting for elementary, because we wanted to see kind of what else was out there and what we liked and what we didn't. We needed to develop common performance indicators. So one of the issues that we had with our previous report cards is that there was a lot of ambiguity and a lot of, I would say, a lack of understanding of what each of the numbers meant, because previously it was a scale of 1 to 5. And so it was never outlined anywhere what a 1 was, what a 2 was, or what a 3 was. And so Nick and I could both be third grade teachers and be looking at a student who has very similar academic ability. I could give him a 3 and Nick might give him a 4 because it just wasn't clearly laid out. And that's problematic for many reasons. So we really wanted to come up with some common performance indicators that were easy to understand for teachers, because that makes it easy to understand for parents and students. The next step that we used, we used the standards and eligible content to determine what we assess on the report card, because that needed to be updated as well. Then we broke into grade level teams and we developed drafts of a grade level report card, and then we revised those drafts based on feedback. So when we surveyed the teachers, that was our first step, we found a lot of issues and a lot of area for growth in our grade reporting at the elementary level. So our current grading practices were confusing to students and parents because, like I said before, the 1 to 5 scale was really unclear, really ambiguous, and didn't allow for much consistency across our buildings. There was a lack of training on the criteria of the 1 to 5 scale. What does a 3 really mean? What does a 4 really mean? And so we wanted to really clean that up. There were also some inconsistency on what was reported. We had some standards in there. We also had some program benchmarks, and we really wanted to try to eliminate anything that was programmatic within the report card and really focus on the standards and the eligible content. The report card did not match our curricular pacing, which is a real issue because when a parent gets a report card, they were seeing that some things were not assessed. And to a parent, that looked like we just didn't do it, when in reality, it wasn't, we hadn't taught it yet. And so when they got a first trimester report card and they didn't have a score for that, a parent would see that and think, well, why doesn't my kid have a score? Well, it's because we didn't get there yet, but our report card doesn't communicate that at all. Next is we had some inconsistency with narrative comments. Because the number scale wasn't effective, a lot of our teachers felt the duty and the need to outline a lot of narrative comments on the report card to be able to communicate what their students knew and what they did not know. And if those numbers were more clear, they would not need the amount of narrative feedback. So we had teachers who were spending hours and hours and hours on the narrative feedback for the report cards. And then lastly, there was no consistency with how the grade reports were done. Some were done electronically, some were done on paper, and it was different from building to building. So we really wanted to clean that up as well. Okay. So when we did our research, we looked at other districts and we created a list of priorities based on what we saw that we liked and we knew that we needed to have in our new report card. The first was that it's an easy to read, simple format. The second is that student and parent friendly language. Okay, we tend to have a lot of teacher jargon in our report cards and we needed to eliminate that because it's not meaningful to parents and students. We also worked to block the skills that weren't taught yet. So like I said before, the curricular pacing was off. And so what we liked about a lot of report cards was that they would kind of gray out some of the standards that they hadn't taught yet, so the parents knew we just weren't there yet. We knew we wanted to separate the habits of success. So habits of success are often those things that, those intangible things that are often either behavior, motivational, things like that that contribute to the success of the student, but shouldn't necessarily be a grade. Okay, we shouldn't be grading behavior. We shouldn't be grading those things, but there is still a purpose in being able to communicate those things to parents and families. And then we also needed to separate the itinerant grade reporting. So in the previous system, if Bo was a PE teacher, he would have to get my class's report cards from me, fill out his PE information, and then give it back to me as the classroom teacher. And our itinerants sometimes have upwards of 500 students. And so for them to do that was very laborious and took a lot of time. So we really needed to clean up how we reported itinerant grades. So the biggest thing that we needed to clean up was the language of the performance indicators. And so we spent hours and hours and hours coming up with these 3 performance indicators. The glory of having that many committee members is that a lot of voices were heard, but there's a lot to sift through here. And so when we sat down as a committee to say, as an elementary teacher, how would you like to communicate to families how much a student knows and does not know? So they basically came up with, after hours, students can either do it with or without me. Okay, they can only do it with my support, or they can't do it with or without my support. And so we came up with the beginning, approaching, and meeting wording. So beginning means the student can't do it with my support, and they can't do it without my support as a teacher. Okay. The approaching, which is the next one up, is that the students can do it with the teacher support, but they can't do it without the teacher support. Okay. And then meeting means they can do it with or without the teacher. They can do it independently, and they can do it with the teacher's support. So it really takes away the ambiguity. Beginning, they can't do it with either. Meeting, they can do it with the teacher's support, but not independently. And, approaching. And then meeting would be they can do it either way. And so after we drafted that language for the performance indicators, then we broke up into grade level committees, and each grade level took the standards and eligible content and organized it into student and parent friendly language. Okay, so the next few slides, and you have it here in your packets that I handed out to you, are the samples of what we were able to report. So if you look at the front cover of the paper documents that you have, or if you click the link that's in the slideshow, you'll see that we created a cover sheet that gives basic biographical information. We have that meeting, approaching, and beginning clearly outlined on the front. And then we have the habits of success in the middle of the front page, and each grade level went through and developed their own habits of success. And then we have an area for narrative comments on the front page. Also noted at the bottom of the front page is that science and social studies are integrated into our ELA and math standards. So we are reporting on ELA and math only. Itinerant grades will be reported after marking periods 2 and 4. So our itinerant teachers only see our elementary students once every 6 days. So for them to report every 4 marking periods is a lot, because they only see them once every 6 days. So they were often in a situation where they were needing to give students a grade after they've only seen them maybe 4 times. And so that was problematic for our itinerants. So we moved it so that they are reporting once a semester rather than once a marking period. And then if you flip to the back of the kindergarten example, I'm going to just point out a few things for you for kindergarten and 3rd grade. On the back, you'll see the performance indicators again, that beginning, approaching, meeting. A really important thing to us as a committee was that we elicit the growth mindset in students and parents, because our purpose of reporting grades is to show what students know and what they don't know, but it is not a final document. We need students and parents to understand that they don't know these things yet. And so our wording, it was really important that we elicit the growth mindset within our grade reporting. So you'll see the ELA and the math. We try to really break this down into student and parent friendly language. For example, they can identify numbers 0 to 20, beginning, approaching, or meeting. And the teacher would give a performance indicator for that. And then the last thing I just want to point out to you, if you flip to 3rd grade in your packet or on the presentation, another thing that was important to us as a committee was to be able to transition students and parents to a percentage-based system. So starting in 5th grade, our students receive percentage grades rather than the previous 1 through 5. And so what we thought we would do in 3rd grade, once we get out of that primary K-1-2 mindset, is to start thinking about transitioning students and parents to the percentage, because not all parents and students understand what does an 80% really mean. So what we did is we took, starting in 3rd grade, we took that beginning, approaching, and meeting, and we aligned it with a percentage. And so you'll see a beginning would be below 60, approaching would be 60 to 79, and then meeting would be 80 to 100. And our hopes in this would just be to, slowly step parents into the percentage-based system that we use at grades 5 and up. Okay. And then every grade level looks a little bit different with the standards and the eligible content, because those are related to the grade level standards. Okay. And then the last slide, we have some next steps to take. And so some of this has already been done at this point. We did update Board Policy 212 to indicate the change to the 4 marking periods. We approved that last month. We do have to share the new report cards with the K-4 teachers. Each of the committee members worked with the people that they work closely with their PLCs or grade level partners. So teachers do know that this has been changed, but we haven't done any professional development on it yet, just because there was so much at the beginning of the school year. And so we're really going to push into PLCs with our instructional coaches and myself, and train teachers on these new report cards as we near the report card time. And then lastly, we are going to migrate towards doing an electronic report card in PowerSchool. However, there was so much change this year. There's a lot going on even outside the pandemic. And so we really didn't want to overwhelm teachers with the migration to an electronic report card right now, but we do have it mapped out and have some goals for when we can get that done in PowerSchool. It just did not feel like the right time to do that right now. So we felt pretty confident that by making the changes to the performance levels and the standards and separating out the habits of success, that those are really good steps forward. And then we will take a few additional steps to really finalize this process. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, are there any questions for Ms. Hall? Comments? Well, thank you so much for all of your hard work and all the work of the team on doing this. I know that new elementary report cards were something that has been a long time need, and especially with the change to 4 marking periods, kind of like, let's rip the Band-Aid off and just get it done.
Yep, and that's what the committee members said too. They're like, if we're gonna make some changes, let's do it right. And so that's what we tried to do.
I just want to commend Megan on the process that was used, because it was a very collaborative process, and it was done well in a short period of time because of the folks that took part in that committee. So thank you.
Okay. The next section of our agenda is the hearing of visitors. We have one, correct? We have Tina Eisenhower, who requested on athletics, health, and safety plans and expenditures. I remind you to please limit your questions to 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Do I need my video on, or am I good?
That's entirely up to you.
Okay. Hi, my name's Tina Eisenhower, and I have a daughter at Central Mount Middle School who participates in the volleyball team and the football cheerleading squad. One of my biggest concerns is I know the health and safety of our kids is a priority. And I do want to thank the board and the school district for allowing us to have sports, because there's a lot of schools that are not fortunate enough to do that right now. One of the issues that parents and I have discussed, and I got nominated to bring up, is the fact of the parents being able to attend the functions, especially the football and the volleyball team. I know that there's a mandate by the governor. I guess the question is this mandate a mandate? Is it a law? Do we have ways that we can go around it? The biggest concern for us is safety for our kids. What if they get hurt at one of the events and we are not there? And also the fact that we are allowing other schools to have visitors before the parents that go to this school. I get it, the seniors, parents want to be there for their games. The band and the cheerleaders are only attending 4 games. They're not going to any away games. So as it sits right now, none of the other classmen have the opportunity to go watch their kids play. But yet we're allowing these other schools to bring in their parents. The problem I see with some of this is, like it's going to change on a weekly basis, as I was told, which that's great until you look at the schools we play and the number of kids on their football teams and the number of seniors on their squads that are taking away from us. Do we have a way that we can limit a roster for visitors coming and playing? And is there a chance that we can look at, okay, let's take one game and no visitors come and let the parents watch one of the home games? I know it's rough with everything that's going on, but I also think that these kids need their parents too. They need to support of their parents, their community, and we need to do that little by little. And I guess I'd like to see what the options are, for taking a game or two and not allowing the visiting team to bring visitors, so that we can come and watch one of the games and watch our kids participate in whichever sport they are. And I know I've heard it from a lot of football parents that the cheerleaders and the band shouldn't be there, but we have to remember that's their sport too. And they work just as hard as the football players, as the volleyball players. It's sad that we have a volleyball game that we cannot even bench a whole team. We have to allow kids to sit in auxiliary gym and go get substitutes and bring them back to play on the court. So I just wanted to express the concerns of the parents that I talk with every day, because they were all too chicken to come and talk. But it is something for these kids. They've been through a lot. And when you look at, we're putting hundreds and hundreds of kids in a school every day, and we can't go outside and watch a game. So my biggest thing is I would like to know, because I've seen a couple schools in Pennsylvania right now that have not listened to the governor, and they're opening their sports up. Do we have that option? Can we look into what is and what isn't, and what happens if we do that?
Okay, well, thank you for for having the courage to come and talk. I'm not going to say it the other way around, the way you put it.
It's hard. I've never done this before, so
Okay, well,
thank you.
Did a good job, Tina.
Thank you.
as far as the legality part of it, I know our solicitor and our legal counsel would certainly say that while it's a mandate and it's not codified into law, there is a law that does specifically say that an order of the Secretary of Health regarding public safety is enforceable under law. So you're not breaking the mandate, and you're not legally responsible there, I guess, but you're responsible for breaking the law that says you have to listen to the Secretary of Health. And I believe that just today we got some guidance from I guess it was the Superintendent's Association or something like that regarding that. As far as the other pieces of your concern, hey, I get it. And one of the problems is we play in a league. The league sets the rules. There could be sanctions if we don't follow the rules. But I think that
I've got some
Superintendent Martin
updates,
was
yeah.
who's gonna update us on some of that stuff altogether anyhow. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, we'll move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Martin.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I just want to let you know, I've been in 2 meetings this week with leaders from the Department of Health as well as the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And the reason I was requested to be in these meetings, which were of course virtual, was because they are monitoring the rate of community spread in all of the counties across the Commonwealth. And recently, Center County moved into the rate where they were considered substantial, or in the red. If you recall the school closure matrix that I provided to the board and to the members of our community about a month ago or so, Center County is in that range at 105 per 100,000. And so any school district that has any part of their footprint in Center County was invited to attend these meetings. I would say that they were very supportive in the fact that they listened to us, they answered some questions for us, and one of the things that we requested from them when discussing outbreaks in businesses in various counties, we asked them to tell us where those outbreaks are occurring, and they told us they weren't permitted to let us know. And so I very frankly asked them or informed them that if they're giving us the authority to make the decision on closing schools, they need to give us as much information as possible, and we should be considered to be able to keep that confidential when making decisions that impact thousands of students. So we've asked for more information. They're taking it into consideration. They did follow up with us today, saying they are working with the Department of Health about whether or not they can disclose that information to superintendents. What I also found interesting was the original guidance from them was that they recommend that if you are in substantial for 2 weeks, you should consider any remote options that your district has. However, they're not mandating that you close schools if you're in 2 weeks of substantial. Additionally, their original guidance is if you have any part of your district that is in a county, that recommendation should stand. Our footprint crosses 3 counties. And what's interesting is the other schools in Center County that do not have a rate of community spread within their zip codes are not considering closure at this time. So again, they reiterated several times it is a local decision about closing schools and going remote. So I continue to stay in touch with them. We're going to meet again early next week and just continue to work with them and try to continue to keep our learning options actively going as they currently are. As of right now, I am not aware of any positive cases among staff or students in our district. I know that I've talked with many principals today and also many teachers who feel that while these safety precautions are inconvenient and sometimes frustrating, that for the most part, we're able to follow them. Our students are following, they're being cooperative. And we are also in the process of making adjustments to our plan. I know Mr. Varelli's here this evening. One example would be changing some hallway traffic patterns that we originally established. We found out that we could, modify them a little bit, make things easier for kids. We're modifying mask breaks, working with the elementary principals and modifying some rules on the playground and use of playground equipment. So we're still continuing to adjust the safety plans to what makes sense while still keeping our students and staff safe. We'll continue to monitor that, and I do want to work closely with the safety committee of the school board to discuss some of those things and gather some information about how things are working. So if we do need to make any major changes, we can make it with good, solid information. Additionally, I do want to thank Mrs. Eisenhower for speaking this evening. She and I have been in touch multiple times yesterday and today via email and phone. I've been in touch, and I just wanted to let the rest of the board know this. I have been contacted by several parents who have the same position on on the spectator events for our Friday night football games here at Central Mountain High School, and the desire to have the underclassmen, the parents of underclassmen also have opportunities to attend events. So when Mrs. Eisenhower says she's speaking for a group, I would verify that, as there were at least 4 other parents who have contacted me directly with the same concern. So I just wanted to let the board have that information as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Martin. Any questions for the superintendent? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into committee reports. I believe the only committee that has met since last week is probably the policy committee. Mr. Koch?
Okay. I assume you want me to go to the part of the agenda that has the different policies that are up for first reading tonight.
It's your report as the committee chair, so you tell us what you want us to know.
Okay, I'll try to go through this as fast as I can. And I don't have the agenda in front of me because I don't know how to bring it up, but that's okay. I got the policies in front of me. Policy 103.1 deals with discrimination and the dealing with students with disabilities who are qualified students, ordinary qualified but have disabilities. That's policy 103.1. Is there any question on that? Policy 104, Title IX comes in here. This deals with sexual harassment of staff. No staff is allowed to engage in any kind of sexual harassment with other staff members and fellow employees. That's policy number 409. Policy number 247 deals with hazing. And again, it brings in Title IX. I won't grace you with some of the stories I graced the policy committee with, but I do have a history of personal experience with hazing back when I was in high school. Actually, I was in elementary school when I was living in Sugar Valley, and hazing used to take place with high school students at that time, but that goes back to ancient times. That's many years ago. Policy number 249 deals with bullying and cyberbullying and what we intend to do about that based on policy. Policy number 252 deals with dating violence. In other words, any students that have that develop relationships with each other cannot engage in any kind of violence because of their relationship in the school, preferably even out of school, but no dating violence among students. Policy 317.1 is educator misconduct. That's dealing with the relationship of educators in their relationship with students, and not to engage in any behavior of any kind that goes beyond bounds between educators and students. Policy 317.1, that was 317, policy 800 is records management. We're trying to upgrade our records management. Our records getting with electronic record keeping and all that stuff. That's all covered under policy 800. And finally, policy 824, maintaining adult student boundaries. This deals with all adults, not just employees of the school district, but any people that come into the district to perform volunteer duties that are not employees of the school district, or any other adults that come onto the campus cannot engage in any relationships or things that go beyond the bounds with students. And those are all the policies that I don't know if I missed any on the agenda or not.
No, Mr. Cook, you got them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are all on first read. I would encourage my board members to read them in detail. They're available there. These will be passed on second read at next month's meeting. The next meeting of the policy committee is on October the 14th, the day before the next voting meeting. If any of you have any questions or any recommendations, either contact Mrs. Lynch, Mr. Johnson, myself, Mr. Kondo, Dr. Martin, Mrs. Manning, to address any concerns you may have between now and the time we pass these on the second reading.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Koch.
Thank you.
I don't believe any other committees have met since last week, but if I'm wrong, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. That takes us into reports. You've got the treasurer's report from last month or last week, and the enrollment report has been added. So that is a new addition to the agenda. It's just an informational item. Any questions or comments on the enrollment report? If not, other additions to the agenda tonight that were not included at the work session are items G, 3, and 4. Those are emergency instructional time plans for the district and for the CTC. Dr. Martin, would you care to fill us in on exactly what that is?
Sure. I just want to first minute go back to the enrollment report.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
For the first time, since I've been at Keystone Central, this is the first time that we've seen an increase in our enrollment from one month to another. So some of the feedback that I've been given from parents is that they appreciate that we gave parents so many choices for learning in the time of COVID. I do also want to commend Mr. Eady for his work with our virtual academy, which quadrupled in size or more in the time that we've been out of school and asked to reopen our schools. And I think that being proactive and working with our families to be supportive and understanding of their choices has gone a long way with folks in the community, which is helping to keep us and start to turn things around where we are becoming the school of choice for families. So I want to commend my staff as well as all of the Keystone Central staff for making that possible. Even though our numbers are still down from where they were a year ago, if you analyze the trends in enrollment, what you're seeing is the trends in birth rate that are continuing to decline enrollments. But if we can continue to keep up this positive pace, we may be able to defy some of the enrollment trends that we heard about last year in the spring when we were considering closing facilities and consolidating schools. So I just want to say keep it up, and we are here to work with families in the community, and we want to be the school of choice.
Well, thank you. That's definitely a positive change for us.
Sure. The addition of items are called an emergency instructional time template. And I turned one in to PDE, and they returned it and said that we needed to turn in two, one for the CTC and one for the district. So what this would be is a formality of saying that in the event that we need to close one or more of our facilities, we would use remote learning as the way to continue instruction and meet the 180 days requirement in a school year. So in a sense, you've already approved that plan in our reopening schools plan, but as an additional step that PDE has thrown at us, we need a formal approval that we're meeting the minutes and days requirement.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Other items added to tonight's agenda are that weren't on the work session agenda are basically just two tax matters that we're not really allowed to discuss. One is a settlement, one is an appeal. And I think that covers all of the additions to the agenda.
Mr. President, I believe maybe L2 is an addition.
L2, yes, the Athletics Health and Safety Plan. That is also an addition.
That's going to need some more explanation as well.
Okay, sure. Do we want to go through that now, or do we want to do it when we vote on it?
Your call, sir.
Well, unless we want to pull it for separate consideration, we should probably discuss it now.
I agree.
Okay. So a week ago, I stood in front of this group and explained the draft plan. And at the same time that I was meeting with this group and explaining the draft plan for prioritizing attendance at events for our students first, and our parents and our senior parents over spectators. At the same time, Mr. Borelli, who's here this evening, and Mr. Bidwell were attending a league committee meeting. What they shared with me at the end of the board meeting last week, or the work session last week, was that we were the only school who was in favor of not permitting visiting spectators. And therefore, following that conversation, it was agreed that we would work with the league and be a team player with the league, because we felt that was the right thing to do. The league wanted to have a consensus. So since then, obviously that we have some disenchanted parents, and rightfully so. And I really believe that regardless of what we decide, we're going to have disenchanted parents. However, based on those conversations and some additional new information from this morning, Mr. Borelli and I have made some changes to this, particularly in the area of Central Mountain football. The rest is very similar to what I shared with you before. And basically, the safety protocols here are what you had originally approved in a return to play plan with the cleaning and protocols, and they all follow the PIAA rules. When you get to the spectators section, that's a tongue twister. I just want to review some of these things. No spectators or non-essential staff are permitted to attend practices. We are not operating concession stands until further notice by the superintendent. No members of the general public will be permitted to attend events, and by that we mean anyone without a ticket. Just anyone showing up saying, you know, it's a nice night for a game, like to go take the game in. We are denying general public at this time to any of our events. All school rules and regulations in effect. Spectators must be wearing a mask and following the social distancing protocols. We would like spectators to leave the stadiums at the conclusion of the events, partially because in some nights we have multiple events. So if we can get that group out and we can start another event, then our counts start over. The principal will have the discretion to distribute any additional tickets that would not exceed our 250 spectator limit. That is a current limit, and we have been notified not only by the Superintendent's Association that is a hard limit, but the PIAA also late today sent out some advisement from their group saying they expect all schools to follow the 250 limit for total number of bodies at an event. And they said that as the governor right now is making it a recommendation that we don't play sports, he has not mandated that sports are canceled. And the quote in the email I received was, "As the governor giveth, the governor may taketh away." And the PIAA's argument about keeping sports open is weekends if schools are violating the 250 limit. So at this time, I do not recommend in any way that we violate that limit. That if at any time that's lifted, we could make some different adjustments to this plan at that time. I suspect there may be changes in approximately 2 to 3 weeks based on House Bill, I think it's 2087. I forget the exact number, which does give local control over events for spectators and limits. So we then came up with by sport. So in general, spectators at tennis, softball, golf, cross country, regardless if it's at Bucktail or Central Mountain, spectators would be permitted to come to those events. There is no ticketing, but we do ask that folks wear a mask and socially distance. For Bucktail junior high football, and also varsity football, we do want to permit each of our students, regardless if they're a cheerleader, band member, or football player, to have 4 tickets for family members to attend a game. And then we would provide just a total number of 24 tickets to the opposing team for them to distribute as they see fit. That gets a little bit different for Central Mountain football, because by putting 2 teams and that many tickets for our students alone, we would be exceeding the limits. And that is with, Mr. Varelli can, if you want to weigh in on this a little bit for more information, eliminating any non-essential staff. That would be Coach Renninger cutting back to his coaching staff that's available on Friday nights, and some other things. Do you want to talk to that at all, Mr. Varelli?
Yeah, we talked today, I talked with George Bidwell today, and we did look at those numbers. Everyone who is currently in that list right now is essential staff. We're currently working on possibly looking to see if we can shave some of those numbers down. But as far as for tomorrow night, we'd like to have what we have in front of you on that list. And then after that, try to come up with a new plan proceeding forward to get as many of our spectators in as we possibly can. And that is our biggest goal. And we've been working on that for the last couple of days to do that. But right now, those numbers are the numbers that we have, but there are possibilities moving forward. But that would talk about possibly shaving some of our coaches that attend the game and some other areas also.
So for all those other events, I kind of jumped over them a little bit, but our students would receive 4 tickets, and we would provide 2 tickets per visiting team student. So they would have roughly half as many visiting spectators as we have home spectators. As Mr. Verley said, we've been doing some deep thinking, and unfortunately, as Mrs. Eisenhower indicated, we there's no good solutions, because regardless, there's only so many tickets that can be had when you get enough people in to hold the event. And it's difficult to prioritize, that when it comes down to which parents get in and which parents don't get in. When I spoke to this group last week, I explained that my priority is my students first, and that includes the cheerleaders and the band members. My second priority is our parents. And within that, my senior parents are a higher priority, and the visiting parents are my lowest priority. So I don't know if the board any board members would like to weigh in on that. What we did find out that was new is that there is now a school in the PHAC that has decided for tomorrow night, they're not letting any visiting spectators in their event. So there actually are no sanctions coming forth from PHAC if we decide to do that. The consequence is that they would likely not reciprocate by giving us visiting tickets for their, for away events, which our band and cheerleaders are not traveling to away events, as you also heard this evening. So if anybody would like to weigh in, it doesn't specifically, at this point, our plan says that visiting spectators would be provided tickets. If this group wishes to change that, again, we're trying to find ways to do the best we can, but I'd be happy for board members to weigh in.
I would just like to bring up something as a point of information regarding House Bill 2787, the Let Our Kids Play bill. Assuming that it is going to be vetoed by the governor, he hasn't indicated when that's going to happen. It actually has not been signed by the presiding officer of the House yet. But once that is done, the governor then has 10 days to make up his mind on what he's going to do. So that would mean that, assuming the presiding officer of the House would sign tomorrow, the governor would have until the 21st of this month to decide whether he's going to veto it or not. And if he would use all of that time and then veto it, then it has to go back to both houses of the legislature. So realistically, even if there is a veto override, there's not going to be anything much happen with this until the last week of September or into early October. So, I mean, it really doesn't play into our discussion on our plan here, but just as a matter of information for anybody who's expecting that to be a fast process, it's not going to be.
Just one question about the visiting team rosters. Are we able to limit that so that a team doesn't come in with 60 players?
That's a good question. At this point, that is not anything that the PHAC is recommending. Our conference is not recommending that. I can only speculate on to why that is. It would be very difficult to tell an opposing team you're only allowed to have this many players or this many coaches. But at this point, every single week, you could be looking at a different number. Like for example, if you see this week, I think the number was 61. It could easily change next week. Right now, we are scripted to give Shikellamy 25. And just so you know this, I want to be perfectly clear and upfront with you. If we decided not to give them that 25, we would still be about 10 short to give every single one of our parents for band, cheer, and football one ticket. Now, we're looking at creative ways moving forward for next week, but for right now, that's where we are. And I just wanted to make sure you had all that information. But it was discussed, and it wasn't something that any school wanted to do to another school coming in. They didn't want to take away any kind of athletic advantage by determining that you can only have this amount of kids. But that is a good question, and we talked about that.
So depending on the numbers, like you're looking at the numbers each week for the teams, at some point, I know the importance of our senior parents getting to see their kids play, because who knows if we'll get shut down or not. Sorry, I'll take this off. But at some point, will the coaches for band, cheerleader, and football, cheerleading and football, have discretion to switch it around to give other parents opportunity? Are we able to, will they have that flexibility?
The way this plan is written, that flexibility exists. And again, the only activity is Central Mountain games, football game, varsity football, not even JV, not, junior high, because they run them as separate events. And there are JV parents who, there are some students who play varsity football and JV football. So those parents will have an opportunity to see their children play on JV. I would like to continue to work with Mr. Varelli, Mr. Bidwell, the coaches, the band directors, and as well as the cheerleading advisor to find creative ways to provide something for everyone. But we're going to have to be creative. And as of tonight, I don't have those answers for you, but this plan allows us the flexibility to find those answers.
I think any way you look at it, this is just it's a very bad situation to be in, and there is no what we'll call right answer. There's no magical way to make people happy as a result of this, and we're just going to have to accept that no matter what we do here, we're going to have some folks who are feeling disenfranchised and are not very happy about this. But effectively, our hands are tied. We're not going to break the law or any regulations or anything like that. And we certainly want to remain in good standing in the PHAC as well. Whether they're going to impose sanctions or not, it's a pretty crummy move to pull what one of the member schools did this week. That's I'm sure whoever they're playing against is mad as can be. So,
And I do feel for our volleyball team.
Yeah.
I just want to say they're not getting anybody. So while I understand some people are upset that they may not get in to see events, our volleyball parents aren't getting the opportunity at all. So I do want to work with Mr. Varelli and look at some creative solutions for those parents. I want to remind everyone about the Record Online live streaming events. I know it's not the same as the real thing, but it's definitely better than what some other districts are able to do because they've stepped forward to help us.
yeah, if we could play volleyball outside, we would, but it's not really an option.
And it's a great day to be a Buck.
Yeah.
The small
Hi.
school is winning on this one.
Ms. Lynch?
Yes, thank you. I'm assuming the answer is they're not being charged, but if the district decides, the board decides, administration decides, athletic decides that X amount of tickets are going to the opposing team, those are still complimentary tickets, correct? They're not, they have to pay for them?
At this point in time, we did not feel it was appropriate to charge folks for tickets to enter these events. If at some point in time we are allowed to set local limits for our venues, I would like to bring that back to the board with some different recommendations and a change to the plan, and then potentially the charge for the tickets would also change. You know, is it possible then at that point that we could allow concession stands to open and make it more of an event? At this point, it's a football game. There's going to be the band performing before before the game, the national anthem, and at halftime show, our cheerleaders will be doing their event. And so it's really just an opportunity to get parents into this event to see their children perform. So at this time, we did not feel it was appropriate to charge folks for those, for that venue.
I would ask a question related to the volleyball, as the question was asked by Ms. Eisenhower regarding parents being in the vicinity of where the event is happening. If we're having a volleyball game, say in our gymnasium, could we display the live stream perhaps in the auditorium?
Well, she and I discussed that today. You can, but you cannot exceed 25 students in the auditorium or 25 spectators in the auditorium.
Right, so it would
But
still be very limited.
It
but-
would still be limited, but it is something I've talked with Mrs. Eisenhower about today, but I have not had a chance to talk to Mr. Borelli or Mr. Bidwell about those things, but that possibility does exist.
I mean, I know it's not perfect, but.
At least they're closer to their kids.
Right.
Could that possibly be done outside, weather permitting?
I would have to talk to my amazing tech team.
I mean, I just asked the question.
Yeah.
It might.
We need a
increase-
jumbotron.
Anything is possible with
I
the
don't-
right amount of money.
I don't know whether you have the capability to do that, but I think if it was, and then you have the weather that would cooperate,
Mhm.
might be a solution.
There might be a board member who actually owns the equipment to do that, but I'm not mentioning any names.
Gee, Bo.
Randy,
Eric?
All right, well, is there any other questions or anything like that on?
I am kind of curious about, you said that there's a school in the PHAC community that is not allowing visitors.
as
that-
of today, they changed their mind about visiting spectators for tomorrow night. That doesn't mean that they are doing that permanently. The information we have right now is today they made that decision for tomorrow night. So I don't know what drove their decision. But yes, there is a dissenter.
And there's no sanctions for that?
Apparently, there are no sanctions that I'm aware of because there are no bylaws in the PHAC that would have addressed this type of situation. So I don't think that they have any legal or, ramification way to hold us accountable for that, other than if you're not going to play nice, we won't play nice.
That's kind of what I was getting.
Yeah.
at. I mean, if they're gonna, if another school wants to do that, that's their decision, but at the same time, expect reciprocity.
That's what I would expect, yeah.
So,
But that team's not doing that to us right now.
right, I understand that. I'm just,
Are they even on our calendar this year?
I don't think so. I think they're
No,
in a
they're
different
not.
division.
well, then we don't have to worry about it.
All right, thanks.
If there is any way, I just want to assure the board, if there is any way that we can get more of our parents to events creatively and within the parameters of the law, we will do it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Martin. Thank you, Mr.
Can-
Borelli.
Actually, I have a question on this.
Okay.
Okay, so with the fact that we're looking at having the record online broadcasting this, okay, these events and stuff like that. The Wi-Fi around the stadiums and around the schools, would that be able to handle, people logging in to like bring their laptop to be able to log in near the stadium? Or is our capabilities not to that point yet?
Again, I will defer to our fabulous tech team.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of the tech team, but perhaps Mr. Crape will either nod or something if I'm saying this correctly or not. But I would expect that our capabilities regarding wireless access are going to increase dramatically after we put in the new Wi-Fi system. Right now, it's probably not up to handling that load.
we can,
The new wireless would definitely aid to that. Am I saying that we can pack our parking lot with every parking spot full and have every parent streaming that game live? I'm not gonna say that. But the new wireless system will increase our potential exponentially.
we can also put some parameters or blocks that it's not an open to anybody.
Yeah.
That would help make sure that people who aren't here aren't getting, again, left out because of why the live stream won't work. And on that note, Chad's been working with Michael Frank and his crew because we do have some connectivity issues at our Bucktail campus because our Wi-Fi's are not strong enough for live streaming. Some of the equipment is expected to arrive tomorrow. Okay.
Imagine that.
So we are working as fast as we can. We had ordered the equipment for this idea back in June, and not really for live streaming athletic. I mean, it was partly that, but the other part was to provide wireless hotspots in at our schools in the event that we were remote again and people needed to access. They could at least drive into a parking lot and access free Wi-Fi for school lessons. So we've been working on it. It's just not here yet, and that's been really one of the biggest frustrations is ordering all of these devices, and Megan's shaking her head as well. The laptops or the Chromebooks that we've ordered are not all here yet as well. Again, hounding every day. We're supposedly next on the list, and that's been some of the frustration in general.
On that line, like, what is our backup plan? Like, say that we had to go remote tomorrow and we don't have Chromebooks, are we just keeping our fingers crossed, or should we have, I mean, I'm just.
Our secondary students will be, our high school 9 through 12 will have devices, whether they're remote, virtual academy, or with us. We're struggling a little bit with devices for middle school. Every middle school and every elementary, we have some devices on carts that we could probably decide which groups were getting those devices first. And as soon as our other devices came in, we'd have to look at using printed materials and pickup and distribution as a backup plan. But again, every day that we can stay safe enough and not have any cases that we can stay in school, the better off we are. And if you could be with me walking through the district, it is really, it warms your heart to see children sitting in front of teachers and taking part in activities. And yes, it's not ideal because everybody's wearing masks and doing their part, but it's at least better than what we did in the spring. It's a lot better than what we did in the spring.
Okay. Sounds good. Any further questions or comments on the athletics health and safety plan? I believe that does represent the remainder of the additions to the agenda.
Believe as well. I just wanted to double check anything because I know if our situation changes, I want to bring the plan back, but I was wondering if it gives me the ability to make changes to the ticket distribution in the event that changes before we have a board meeting. But it seems like if the principal has the discretion to award more tickets, we should be able to do that even if when we're able to without board approval. Is that how you're interpreting that?
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you differently.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Well then, Mr. Elling.
Well, I would like to make a comment before I actually go to move the entire agenda, except for those items specifically removed.
Yep.
Because I wasn't here last week, and we had the presentation on the girls wrestling, I would like to say that I am very thrilled, as well as Mr. Tom Melling is very thrilled about this.
I wouldn't know why.
I have no idea either, okay? But I did want to point this out, okay? Mr. Tom Melling has a website, and it deals with wrestling, okay? It's PAWRSL, okay? If you enter that, you'll get to his website. And if you take a look, there's actually a thing on there for girls wrestling. So girls wrestling is starting to take off. And I think the fact that we are actually number 5 is a great thing for this district. We are leading the way, and I'm very happy for what we're looking at doing. With that, if you want, I will go ahead and make the motion.
Okay, we should find out if
Okay.
there's anything that we need to hold first.
Well, I'd like to make the motion that we go ahead and approve the entire agenda, except for those items specifically removed. Does anybody have anything that would like to be removed?
J8.
J8, okay, I have that.
L1.
L1. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to have pulled? Okay, with that being said, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and pass the entire agenda except for J8 and L1, which have been pulled.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Elling. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, I will call for a vote. You're probably going to need a microphone.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Probert,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith. Yes. Mr. Strauss,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Coe,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
9 yes votes.
Okay, thank you. Held for separate consideration is item number J8, business. This is recommended action is to deny taxpayer appeal number 09102020A and authorize the tax officer to exercise signature authority for the same. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? We can't really discuss the terms of the case. If not, I'll call for a vote.
Mr. Probert,
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Coe.
just to clarify the vote, this is a vote to
This is a vote to deny.
deny.
So a
Okay,
yes is a no.
I got it.
Mr. Probert,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith. Abstain. Mr. Strauss,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Coe,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
8 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Okay, the remaining item is item L1, athletics personnel. Looking for a motion to, with the recommendation of the administration, resolve that the Keystone Central School District Board of Directors approve the following recommendation for the board, a motion to approve the athletic personnel as presented in the exhibit. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Elling. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Discussion. Okay, then I will call for the vote.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Strauss,
Abstain.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Coe,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Probert.
Yes.
8 yes votes, 1 abstention.
And you'll take care of getting the forms to those folks who need them?
Yes.
Okay. All right, is there any further business to come before this board before we adjourn? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Is that a second, Mr. Probert?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then without objection, this board stands adjourned.